Have we had, sorry, Lisa, have we had any apologies?
We have Councillor John Evan-Jones, Councillor Alan Hughes, and Councillor Gareth Roberts.
Thank you very much, Diolch yn fawr. Is anybody aware of any other apologies that haven't been notified to Lisa? No? Okay, so we go on to item number 2, which is the declaration of interests. Are there any declaration of interests, please? I can't see any hands being raised, so I take it. David?
When it comes to the accepted item, Chair.
Yes, and I take it that'll be the same for you as well, Gareth, won't it? Yeah, that's fine. So the part 2 item. So on to number 3, notice of urgent matters. I haven't received any notification of any urgent matters, so that doesn't apply. So item number 4 is the minutes of the last meeting held on the 16th of December. So we'll just take them in terms of accuracy to begin with. So if we go through page 1, then page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. I can't see any hands being raised, so is somebody happy to propose and second that we accept them as a true and accurate record, please? Thank you, Gareth Sandilands. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Will you all show that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. And then going on to number 5, matters arising. The only matters arising that I could spot is paragraph 7.6, where it says, a member requested that a comparison to both the other Welsh fire rescue services and UK-wide fire rescue services be provided in the future in order to provide some wider context. That refers to the sickness returns that were in the performance monitoring report. That is covered in the performance monitoring report that we have later today. So that has been actioned. Can anybody see any other matters arising from the minutes? I can't see any hands being raised, so no, that's fine. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is the independent cultural review into the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service. And it's ACFO Helen MacArthur that's presenting that, I think. Thank you, Helen.
Diolch. Thank you, Chair. I think we should have said perhaps at the start of the meeting that unfortunately the Chief isn't here today. And the Chief has actually drafted this paper, but she's not able to present it. However, I have been involved in the work, including the engagement of CREST, which incidentally started pretty much 12 months ago this week. I was also heavily involved. I was executive lead during the fieldwork stage and also led on the reporting stage. The work of CREST concluded last week with a presentation to Welsh Government officials, and this paper predates that, so I can also give an update on that. So by way of a background, across the sector, there have been a series of cultural reviews, and that culminated in the review of South Wales Fire. And following the action taken by the Deputy First Minister and the publication of the Sound the Alarm report, it was determined that an independent review of Mid and West and North Wales services should take place. And notably, that was to be independent and also the same review. So all previous reports across the sector made recommendations, and internally we've undertaken a gap analysis of our arrangements, and at the time we were working through those internal actions to address any issues that we identified. Therefore, the focus of our external review was to establish the progress that we've made and to provide a position statement. The fieldwork commenced in September, and all staff were given the full opportunity to engage. Those engagements were through staff surveys. So a survey went out to all staff. There were written submissions. So if you didn't feel able to complete the survey, you could send in your own written submission. There were focus groups and one-to-one interviews. I don't think we can actually stress enough that the work of CREST was totally independent, and notably they determined the approach, determined whether they'd got sufficient information to be able to conclude the report. And the report produced in February reflects the views, beliefs and behaviours of those staff and former staff who came forward. CREST emphasised that the methodology is not designed to investigate individual matters, but it does draw on patterns highlighted. I think the report makes for difficult reading, and there is clearly a lot of work to do. And importantly, internally, we've established a cultural improvement board. And that improvement board will be chaired by the chief, and that will be responsible for developing and delivering the improvement plan. Within that, we have internal staff groups already established, and these will be further developed and strengthened so that work with our colleagues across the organisation. So it's very much a case of we're not doing to, but we're doing with. That said, all previous culture reports across the sector have made recommendations, and that gap analysis resulted in action plans. The focus of those was very much on the form and structure of the arrangements, but the emphasis going forward will be on learning and developing. The previous week, the Chief has also requested support from the Welsh Government, and that's to enable us to address the report and to progress on our cultural journey. These discussions are ongoing, and in addition to the recommendations in the report, I would seek endorsement today from the executive panel, and that endorsement is to continue those discussions so that we can work with the Welsh Government to secure any support, financial or otherwise, that's available. I'm going to end on a positive. And although the report does make for difficult reading, there are a number of positive aspects which would give us the confidence to know that we can make a difference. Firstly, is acknowledgement of the cultural journey so far. We had recognised that there was the need for cultural change along with the sector and society. So hopefully with the ability of Crest and the reflections of our staff, we will be able to take that forward. The report drew out the pride that our staff have and their positive experiences of supported teams, and the work will seek to strengthen that. The report also identified some improvements, especially in areas such as operational training, and I think that validates the work that the Chief had undertaken since she came into post. It also focused on our diversity and our need to recognise all sectors of our society. I was with the Welsh Government last week, and they did put a number of challenges in, and one of those challenges was whether we'd engage fully with our retained colleagues. Retained colleagues were given the opportunity, but the take-up from retained colleagues was perhaps lower than in other cohorts of staff. That will be something that we consider when we undertake our next staff survey. When asked, the Welsh Government officials did ask Crest, can you give us some examples of good practice? And notably, they did draw out the positive action undertaken by this service to address the disparity in the gender makeup of our firefighting roles. That's a really interesting aspect, because not only is that a real positive in terms of what we've achieved, they also highlighted it in an area that we do need to address, because the communication around that and understanding is something that flowed through our report. So I think that for me highlights the complexity of the cultural review. It's very much not what we do, but how we do it. So I'm happy to take any questions on the paper and indeed the report. But as you can see from the paper today, we are seeking to endorse our approach going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Helen. Just before I throw it open to members for comments and questions, could you perhaps provide the update then on the response from Welsh Government officials following the briefing by Crest on the report? Thank you.
Yes, of course. So effectively, Crest, they met with Welsh Government officials and they presented both on North Wales and Mid and West Wales. So they felt they'd have really good engagement from both services. They also felt that the take-up from both staff groups from both organisations was really positive, enabled them to have the confidence in the results that they presented. Importantly, they did stress to Welsh Government officials that this is very much around the ideas, the beliefs and the values held by our staff. It isn't an investigation. It isn't a statement of objective fact. And what they haven't sought to do is do that detailed verification of everything in that report. But it very much does hold a mirror up to us as an organisation, saying this is what your staff feel. So the discussions from the Welsh Government officials were very much around given the balance of our staff between retained colleagues and whole-time colleagues, as well as corporate staff. Did we feel that the results were reflective? And Crest were able to give that positive assurance, but did note in particular the retained colleagues didn't seem able to have engaged. So we do have a staff survey that will run in the autumn time, and I think that's a challenge for us to make sure that we sort of engage more fully, I think, with retained colleagues and understand their needs in terms of responding. The other challenge that went in is whether because we are predominantly the predominance of staff is our firefighting roles. Again, whether that perhaps reflected the views of the FBU. And Crest again said, given the numbers that came forward, given the number of focus groups and indeed one-to-one interviews, they were comfortable that the results reflected those individual experiences, but again, they were able to pull out the patterns. And the real positive was that we were cited as having that good practice. So that really gives you that assurance that we're going in the right direction, but we absolutely have to focus on meaningful engagement with staff, really building that trust, building the confidence, and really focusing on leadership, not just leadership at an exec level or an SLT, but leadership through the organisation. And all of the work that we'll be doing through the improvement board will be on using the NFCC model, which is leadership of yourself, of your team, of the service. So all the different layers of leadership.
Thank you, Helen. I think it's important for us as an authority to get the balance right, that we don't overreact to the findings of this report, but neither do we underreact. And as you mentioned, there are a number of positives in the review, but also a number of negatives. And I've got to say that I was surprised by how much negativity that there was. And members will be aware that I have written formally to the Chief Fire Officer, highlighting my concerns, especially in relation to the findings of widespread bullying and harassment, and asking that as a matter of urgency that a suitable improvement plan is devised so we can move forward and address the recommendations contained in the report. Paul, Deputy Chair, you've got your hand up first.
It's just a comment, thanks, Chair. On Appendix A, we've got 7 good points reflecting progress, and also we've got 8 points regarding negative points reflecting ongoing challenges. And I'm glad to see that we're going to be pushing ahead with the ongoing challenges. You know, it's nice to get a report where some of the things in Appendix A are excellent, but on the other hand, there are still things that need doing, and it's nice to see that we're going to push ahead to reflect these, so we've got a nice balance of everything, Chair, if I put myself clearly.
Thank you, Paul. Gareth?
Yeah, thank you. It's really just reading from the artificial intelligence summary. I thought was quite interesting. The strained union relationships I've mentioned before, our ongoing need to further develop this. How are we doing at the moment? What updates are there to that? Given the fact that we do need everybody sitting around the same table and not outside the room.
I think there are a number of different strands to that, really. So there's relationship. I chair we call it the JCNC, which is Joint Negotiation Consultation Committee. That meets every 6 weeks. And through that, we've been able to develop an approach which sits very comfortably with the social partnership. That's where we engage early on matters that are both strategic and potentially very relevant to our staff. So I've just signed off the agenda for the next meeting just before joining today. And so on there, we've got such things as the training centre, the emergency cover, we've got the culture improvement work, but we've also got items such as station support. So making it clear to representative bodies what help and support we're providing to stations, And we've also got something such as Power Grant radios. So it's very much around working together at the right time. That seems to be working really well. We have good representation from the FBU, we have FOA, we have FRSA, and we also have Unison. So we're able, therefore, to really discuss matters at the most appropriate stage. That's working really, really well. There are some other areas that we need to build those relationships. So I think throughout the report, there were some comments about managers feeling uncomfortable about having difficult conversations. That doesn't surprise me because I don't think there's anybody in this room who relishes a difficult conversation. So we'll be working through our learning and development to address that, really, to give managers the opportunity to build the skills, to build their experience, and to feel supported in that. The consequence of the moment is that things get escalated inappropriately. So consequently, some of the relationships between the FBU and perhaps some of our corporate departments become a little bit strained, and we'll be working through those. I also chair the People and Organisational Development Committee, and we're also trying to get some half days in the diary, just to do the thinking, to do the talking, to do the understanding, because we can change the processes, we can change the systems, but we've got to have people in the middle of it. So I think at the moment, we're in a really good place in terms of those relationships. But I think we can't be complacent, and we have to carry on working at those, because there are so many opportunities for little bumps in the roads and potholes that we need to find a way of navigating through them. So certainly the recommendation in the report is that we need to have something that oversees that, and we'll work collectively with, I think the report did name the FBU because they are the largest union, and we'll have to work through that with our union colleagues to make sure that whatever we do is through agreement and sort of adds the value, really.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members, please? Anthony?
Yeah, just a question on meeting diversity targets. How's that done when surely it's the best person for the job?
Absolutely, that's part of our positive action. So we do recognise that we as an organisation, if we represent our communities, we're going to be best placed. I would absolutely. Oh, I've lost you on the screen. You've moved around. Oh, there we are. Our recruitment and selection processes are really, really robust. And I think it's really important to recognise that we don't lower the standards as part of diversity. What I would say is that what we haven't been perhaps as good as we should have is communicating what our positive action is and how that is aligned to our recruitment process. So I would like to give you self-assurance and also the communities that everybody who's employed by us has gone through a really rigorous process. But I would accept wholeheartedly that we need to have more meaningful engagement, and that will link to Councillor Sandilands' previous question, which is engaging with our representative bodies. So for me, I want people to understand what we do and how we do it. I can't say that everybody's going to be happy about that, because we do, we have been held out as good practice about really addressing some of our diversity needs.
Yeah, very good question, Anthony, because yes, positive action will help us to meet our diversity targets, but you will have seen from the responses within the cultural review that it didn't go down well with some members, so you can't please everybody in relation to that particular area. Any other questions or comments? No, in that case, can I refer you to the recommendations, which is it is recommended that members acknowledge receipt of the report of the Independent Cultural Review and endorse the next steps on the cultural journey of the service, which Helen has outlined. Can I, Paul's proposing?
Yeah. Can I just ask also that the members endorse our ongoing discussions with the Welsh Government seeking support as well, if I may, please?
That's fine. So that's the third recommendation. So I think the deputy chair put his hand up to propose. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rob. Will you show that you agree? That's been unanimously passed. Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the performance monitoring for the third quarter, December 2024 to April 2024. And I think it's ACFO Anthony Jones who's presenting that. Thank you, Anthony. Thanks, Ant.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. The purpose of this report is to provide members with the comparative data relating to the Fire Authority's R5 principles for keeping our communities safe for the first 3 quarters of the financial year 2024 to 2025. This report also contains commentary on activity and proposed activity associated within those principles for us to improve or support ongoing performance. The purpose of this report is to highlight emerging trends that are either increasing or reducing and any new demands. But it's also to inform the development of our new or revised activity to mitigate any increasing or emerging demand or risk. So I'd like to draw members' attention to the fact that the number of fire-related incidents continues to decrease, with 1,252 fires attended, and this is a decrease of 6.7% compared to the same period last year. The number of false alarms have increased, and that continues to rise, with 2,521 incidents attended. And we are still seeing the continuing trend that these are in the main in relation to automatic fire alarms in care home settings, which we've previously reported and detailed. But also the number of accidental dwelling fires attended continues to decrease, with 231 incidents attended. And this is the lowest number we've reported in the last 5 years. So the report's presented to members for approval at this panel of the report, and I welcome to take any questions that members have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ant. A lot of positive data in the report. Gareth, you got your hand up first. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo what the chair's just said. There's a lot of positives in there about the decline in overall numbers. But one question that keeps popping up is the false alarms. We've seen this time and time again, year on year, for as long as I've been a member of this authority. We've got to do something about this. Is it down to faulty equipment? And if so, can we get the alarm companies to can we find them? You know, it costs us a lot of money and time to get out there. But what I wouldn't want to see is, you know, it's like crying wolf, isn't it? At the end of the day, one of those could be, you know, in future positive, but we don't believe it's, you know, we think it's malicious or a false alarm all the time. So I would like to see some serious work go into reducing false alarms, because that has been an issue for a long time. And the other one going into it, HMM Berwyn, I noticed there's an increase we're back up on those call alarms going out. So I want to see some work being done, or if you can tell me what work has been done on prevention again, and make it a sustainable model this time, because we did go into it, we did reduce it, and now it's back again going up. So I'd like some answers on that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Sandland. So if I go to the first part of your question in relation to automatic fire alarms, and I can please rest assured that our protection teams do spend a lot of time engaging with repeat offenders, if you like, those places that have repeated alarms. And for example, if you look at our hospital AFA calls, you'll actually see a reduction, and that's due to that continued tried and tested working relationships, building that working relationships with the site management teams, expressing the demand issues it causes us, and working with them in partnership to help reduce those calls. And in relation to HMP Berwyn, you are right. It is. We have seen a change in the data, but that is also certainly a very much an area of local partnership, working with the lead at that site. We've seen, you know, the site, and I know we've reflected this in previous commentary, that the site is at full capacity. there, but we are working very closely with the runners of the staff and the management team within there. We've got close relationships with the local station commander for that area and the Crown Estates Inspector. So it's certainly an area of focus that, whilst we've seen an improved performance, which has changed recently, it's not an area of focus that we've given up on. We certainly continue those relationships. It certainly is a primary task for that local station manager of Wrexham Fire Station.
Gareth, are you satisfied with those answers, or do you have a supplementary?
I'll be satisfied when the numbers come down.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I got a question in relation to faulty equipment, actually, and this is going off at a bit of a tangent. So I did a visit to a station a few months ago and spoke to the watch there, and I complimented them on the way that they've been involved in tackling a major fire on Anglesey, and I got a comment back saying, and we could have made even more of an impact on tackling that fire when we first got there if the fire hydrant had been delivering the water that it was supposed to. And it has never crossed my radar the significance of having fire hydrants that actually operate as they're supposed to. And it turned out that it's not an isolated case whereby sometimes fire hydrants are covered over or the water isn't flowing as it's supposed to. So my question would be, Ant, how do we ensure as a service that we're checking that fire hydrants are working properly so that they should function when there's a fire and when there's a tender at the scene?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. We have the ongoing work of hydrants is managed by our technical operational department. We have a watch manager who, under his references, sits hydrant testing, and we have 2 dedicated fire hydrant technicians. The testing of hydrants was removed from our operational crews due to a change in the highway law, actually, where you had to be licensed to work on the highway. However, we are working, we're looking at some best practice and some innovative ideas from across the sector of reintroducing hydrant testing to operational crews. And that will help because the 2 dedicated fire hydrant technicians we have, and obviously they're there to satisfy our statutory duty under the Fire and Rescue Services Act for provision of water, and they're employed to test our hydrants periodically and make sure that there's a testing regime in place. Across North Wales, we have over 19,000 hydrants. So, and we work with 2 water boards, Severn Trent and Welsh Water. So you can imagine, our 2 technicians are doing a sterling job, but there's an awful lot of a lot of hydrants to get around. But in relation to operational crews, when they do locate a defective hydrant, they report it via our procedures. We then inform the water board, and controller also notified, so we can keep track of that. All of our hydrants that are tested, the location of them, the size of the diameter of the pipes, and so therefore the flow of water, are all located on our mobile data terminals, on our fire appliances. And another way we ensure our hydrants are as effective as they can be is during either operational intelligence or site-specific risk visits that our crews do. Our crews are asked and made sure that they test any hydrants that are in the area. So we have many reasons, many avenues to make sure we are maintaining our hydrants. We have an awful lot of them across North Wales, understandably. But the plan is in place to increase that hydrant testing for our operational crews to get a broader completion, if you like, of those.
Thank you for that, and it just seems to me that especially if you've got downtime, that surely if a way must be found that they can use some of that downtime to actually go out and test some of these fire hydrants. ACFO Stuart Millington. Stuart, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add one thing to what Anthony said, because what he gave there was a really good explanation of the things that we do as an organisation. One of the things that we're finding, particularly in rural locations, as the water boards are wrestling with burst mains and so on, and leaks within systems, then what they do tend to do is lower the water pressures within systems in order to address some of that challenge that they're dealing with in terms of water loss. I think that as a result of that, we sort of try to work with them to improve that situation and identify areas of most concern. But then during an operational incident, we will seek to employ different operational tactics than maybe ones that we utilised years before. So we can ask them to increase the pressure in the main during an operational incident, which we do on a regular basis. But we also have available to us now high volume pumps, which we didn't have some time ago, which enables us to take water from open water supplies in large quantities at speed to enable us to have enough water for operational firefighting. It takes a little longer to deploy, but ultimately it provides the water that we need. But there is a complex, multiple different avenues that we go down, many of which Anthony's already described, but ultimately we continue to work with water undertakers to make sure we're actually using water operating.
Thank you for that, Stuart. Gareth, over to you, and then Rondo. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, as part of this report, there's themes with long-term and short-term sickness. And I just want to address this. What are we doing to have a happier, healthier culture within the Fire Authority and the Fire and Rescue Service? It says, for example, the number one concern or absence reason was flu and cold for short-term absence. You know, what are we doing to get our jabs, people getting jabs, for example? And the other one is, funnily enough, the County Council report came out last week on a similar basis, and musculoskeletal is quite high on everybody's lists. So are we doing things to prevent this? Are we putting benefits to make a healthier culture, such as benefit? I know that our county council offers gym membership cheaper. What are the benefits to employee, the staff, if you like? You know, do we give a list of benefits which also benefit their mental health? Because mental health is on the increase, unfortunately, and something since COVID needs addressing, I think, quite a lot. So what are we doing to prevent this loss of it's sickness days, if you like? Thank you.
Yeah, but are you happy for me to come in and respond to that? I think Councillor Sandilands, we share that concern. So we absolutely have an employee assistance programme that's very much around it's around self-help. It's around if and when you start to feel unwell or out of sorts, so you can reach out. Within the organisation, we have a number of staff networks, and part of that is about focusing on wellbeing, so things like wellbeing walks, etc., etc. If you're an operational member of staff, you get protected gym time. If you're a staff member of staff who works off a watch, you also have protected time to do some exercise. So we have initiatives such as that. In addition to that, we have access to physiotherapy, and then we take a person-centred approach. So every case of sickness, other than short term, would be reviewed, and that's to make sure to ask ourselves that question is there anything else that can be done? Do we know, have we supported the individual? Are we doing the keeping in touch? Because I think when you're out of the workplace, it's quite a lonely place to be. So it's making sure that the managers keep in touch and keep people engaged with the organisation. Unfortunately, and we have to recognise that NHS waiting lists are much longer than we would like. And we do have occasions where people are frustrated because they're on an NHS waiting list, either for a diagnostic or indeed for treatment. But where that is the case, we also consider whether we can provide any form of reasonable adjustments, modified adjustments. So it's very much what we do corporately, but what we can also do for the individual. So no one size fits all. But I think, as you've just said, it's something that's exercising all organisations, whether they be public sector or private, but especially for ourselves, where quite a significant cohort of our staff have to maintain a particular level of fitness and to be able to operate. So we are working with them to do that. But and that includes working with other public sector bodies, other emergency services to if there are any innovations that work. But definitely a difficult area for us.
Thank you for the question, Gareth. Rondo?
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair. It's just in relation to the standpipes and the work that gets undertaken by the authority in relation to the apparatus which should be sort of maintained by the water authorities. Why are we having to get into that area of practice, Anthony? That's all I was wondering.
Well, in relation to the testing of hydrants, it's always been a statutory function that we have to. It's under the security of provision of water under the Act. So, as long as I've been in the Fire and Rescue Service, I've only ever known we have to test and maintain hydrants, and quite often that could be done by operational crews, or for ourselves, we've chosen to use fire hydrant technicians to make sure that that routine maintenance of hydrants is maintained.
So I take it the two crew members that you mentioned, the blue card carriers, are they then working on live mains?
I'm sorry, I don't know that detail. I mean, I can certainly find out for you, but we certainly had to remove the testing of hydrants from our operational crew.
I'd be very surprised at breaking into mains without blue card training, with a background in the water industry, is permitted, to be honest with you. It's you're treading on thin ice there, really, if there is a contamination issue in tap drinking water and potable water.
So just in case there's been any misunderstanding in my presentation, I'm not saying that they're breaking into water mains. Their idea, they'll test hydrant pits, they'll make sure that the valves are working, they'll do that.
Yeah, but testing a main is basically breaking into a main. Testing a hydrant is breaking into a main. I do find it really uncomfortable, really, knowing that we have to do that. The members have to do that when it should be undertaken by the water authorities. Has that question ever been asked, Anthony?
I think Stuart wants to come in, CFO Stuart Millington. Thank you, Stuart.
Clearly, Councillor Roberts, your understanding of the water undertakers is probably greater than mine, but I do know that we actually own the hydrants. So the Fire and Rescue Service own the hydrants, and actually we do receive an income when others use our hydrants, because the maintenance, the ongoing testing and maintenance is done by the checks, and basic maintenance is done by our staff. But anything more involved than that, anything that requires replacement of hydrants and so on, is then a charge that we pay the water undertakers to do on our behalf. But ultimately, we own the hydrants, which is why we need to make sure they're serviceable and accessible.
But part of the service in requirement of a fire to tapping into the hydrant, you take it in. Is that why we own the hydrant, you say?
We own them because we determine where they're going to be. So whenever over periods of time when there's been new estates built and so on, then we will be, as part of the Town and Country Planning Act, we will be liaised with in relation to a couple of areas, one of which is access for fire appliances and the other is water supplies. So we will determine where we want those hydrants to be as part of that planning application, and then we take on the ownership of that hydrant or those hydrants. And there's about 45,000 hydrants across North Wales that we own, and people periodically do use them. So, for example, if there's a local fair in the area that want access to the water, then they apply to the water board, who give permission, and then we receive an income for the time that they're using that hydrant. So it's done in that way. But ultimately, the two staff that we employ are fully trained and have reaccreditation training with the water board in order to maintain their competence. We used to do it on fire stations, as Anthony's already described, where we would go and we would open the main, and we did get quite a lot of complaints at the time about the discoloration of water in the area and so on. And we still do that when we need it for operational firefighting. But it's an anomaly in this in sort of the Western world that we use the drinking water supply to put out fires. I suppose in places where they can't get clean water, they would probably laugh at that.
Use foul water.
Drinking water to put out the water supply. And one of the innovations that we have started to move towards is using water from waste treatment locations that hasn't been discharged back into the rivers and lakes and so on, but has been treated. And we're now able to use that water that would have previously not been able to be accessible in rural locations where those things happen. But yeah, we certainly do make sure that we follow all of the rules, and the two guys that do that work are fully certified and have regular refresher courses with the water board.
Thank you.
Over to the Deputy Chair. Thank you, Paul.
Can I be a little bit flippant, Chair? In days of old, when we pulled up at a fire, we always used to ship a stamp game bar. to make sure it worked, and then you always remembered where your fire hydrants were. I know things have gone on from those days, but I could see Rob with a smile on his face. But yes, we used to ship a standpipe key and bar and just flush the hydrant to make sure it works.
Well, this is really positive that members are having sort of a lesson here on fire hydrants and how they operate and their importance. Any other questions or comments in relation to the report? I can't see any hands being raised. In that case, the recommendation is just for us to note the Compliance Monitoring Report. Can I have somebody to propose, please? Thank you, Gareth. A second there. Thank you, Carol. If you all show that you approve the contents of the report, that's been passed. So we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 8, which is the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2025-26. And it's back to you again, please, Ant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So thank you. The purpose of this report is to provide members with an overview of the feedback received from the public consultation on our Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2025 to 2026 and the associated equality impact assessments. So under the executive summary of the cover papers, members will see that the legislative requirements placed on the authority that the objectives within the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan have been written to take account of. This is our second Community Risk Management Implementation Plan, which has been developed to support the delivery of the authority's Community Risk Management Plan 2024 to 2029, our 5-year plan. The Community Risk Management Plan aims to identify risks facing the community and describes how the authority will manage those risks and continue to prevent and respond to fires and other emergencies. The public consultation of the authorities and improvement and wellbeing objectives for 25 to 2026 was open between 21st of October and the 16th of December 2024. I'm pleased to say that the response levels were 25% higher than the 2024 to 2025 public consultation, although fewer respondents declared that they were members of staff. Support for the proposed improvement and wellbeing objectives was consistently high across each of the 5 principles for keeping our community safe, ranging from 99 to 96%. Members will also see within the report papers the Equality Impact Analysis report. The overarching aim of this equality impact analysis is to highlight specific themes that emerge from the feedback during the consultation. From this analysis, potential risks of discrimination can be identified and mitigation can be implemented accordingly. Verbatim comments from the consultation respondents were shared with the relevant heads of department or subject matter experts for review and consideration as to what impact, if any, this feedback has had on the proposed objectives for 25 to 26. Trade unions have been engaged with in developing of the wellbeing objectives as part of our social partnership duty, and at the Joint Consultation and Negotiation Committee in February 2025, the trade union represented present agreed consensus on the objectives had been reached. So therefore, members are asked to note the contents of the feedback report and improve the attached Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2025 to 2026 and the associated Equality Impact Assessment for publication. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Can I just sort of offer my thanks to whoever's been involved in producing this report, because it's extremely comprehensive, a lot of information and very well put together in my view. And it is pleasing to note that we've had a better response from the public and some interesting comments there contained in the report. I'll say no more. Any questions or comments from members, please? I can't see any hands being raised. Nobody wants to comment or ask any question in relation to the report? No. In that case, you've heard the 2 recommendations. Can I have somebody to propose, please? Thank you, Chris. And the Deputy Chair, will you show that you agree with the recommendations? That's great. Thank you very much. So we move on to item number 9, which is the Social Partnership Duty Annual Report. And I think it's you again, Ant.
Yes, thank you. Diolch, thank you very much. So the purpose of this report is to present to members the draft annual social partnership report prior to it being presented to the full Fire Authority meeting in April. The Social Partnership and Public Procurement Wales Act 2023 fulfills a programme for government commitment placing social partnership at a statutory footing in Wales. On the 1st of April 2024, the new social partnership duty on public bodies came into force. The duty requires the authority to produce an annual report to evidence how they have complied with the social partnership duty. The social partnership duty requires that North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority seek consensus or compromise with our recognised trade unions when setting of their wellbeing objectives, making decisions of a strategic nature about the reasonable steps they intend to take to deliver those objectives. The report highlights on page 4 that notably all policies and procedures are highlighted for consultation prior to approval by the services leadership team, ensuring that matters of note or concern are addressed at the relevant time. During the course of this year, the following matters have been considered and recorded under the social partnership duty: the emergency cover review, the development of a new training centre, our external review on culture, our station management framework, and agreement on proposed changes to the promotional processes for operational staff. The duty also requires that the annual report must be agreed with the authority's recognised trade unions or contain a statement explaining why this was not. All the requirements of the Act have been discharged through the Joint Consultation and Negotiation Committee, including agreement upon the annual report itself. Members are asked to note the Social Partnership Duty Annual Report for 2024 to 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members, please? If I could just pick up on one thing, you mentioned that as part of the social partnership, we've been involved with the emergency cover review, and members will be well aware that you have been leading on the on the working group, trying to find a solution for us to move forward. And if I can just sort of draw members' attention again to the letter that I recently sent to the chief, which also called upon the service and the unions to continue to work together to find some sort of option that will bring about some improvement in the lack of cover that we have at the moment in terms of our rural areas and during the daytime. So I am hoping that we will have some sort of proposal that will be brought before next meeting in April. And are you able to give me some sort of guarantee or some sort of positive feedback that my hope will not be in vain?
Certainly, I think I'd be disingenuous to give you a guarantee, Chair, but certainly hope. We are working very positively with the in this account. Obviously, the emergency cover review does focus in predominantly with our operational staff and therefore the Fire Brigade Union, although the Fire Services Association is also involved. But we are working very positively. We're working very hard on a collective agreement, which will once signed off and agreed, should give us the confidence that we have the capacity within our existing workforce budgets to start doing some pilots and work on some ideas for change in those rural areas. And we're working very positively with the Fire Brigade Union. I met with them on Friday. We are very close to agreeing this collective agreement. They're going to take it out to their members next. But yeah, it's certainly very positive. But I'd feel a bit disingenuous if I was to give you a guarantee at this stage, Chair. But we are working very well together.
That's fair enough, and thank you for that. So it sounds as if, though we don't have a green light, we might have an amber light at this stage, and hopefully it will change green by our meeting in April. Any other comments or questions from members? can't see any hands being raised. In that case, can I have a proposer that we note the report, please? Thank you, Rob. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Carol, if everyone shows. Thank you very much. So the only other item in part 1 is any urgent matters. There aren't any urgent matters, but just to let members know that the chief and myself, together with the chiefs and chairs of the other fire rescue services, although that's not the same in South Wales, did meet with the cabinet secretary and her officials, and that was at her request, just to let us know that she will be making an oral statement to the Senedd on the 25th of this month in relation to the cultural review into Mid and West Wales and ourselves, and how she expects to see things move forward. So I can't say anything more about that at this stage, but just to make you aware that there is this oral statement on the 25th. Helen, did you want to come in, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It wasn't actually in relation to that item, so are you happy for me to continue? Yeah, brilliant. Just one other item from myself under AOB. As we come to the close of the financial year, we start to do our final accounts planning, and part of that is reviewing the member declarations from all of the members to ensure that we tease out the related parties. The audit committee this morning, I put a plea out for members who've received the form by email to complete it as soon as possible, please. I think we've got about 15 outstanding, so if you get the reminder again, it's because we've not had the original, we've not had a form back. So I would just request that members do take the time to complete that. Sadly, last year we did have a couple of forms outstanding, and we got an audit note to that effect. So we're seeking to get ahead of it this year. So, but if any members do have any difficulties completing it, then reach out to the team and we'll help and support you through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. So that's a very nice plea from Helen to members to do their homework. Chris, you did have your hand raised, but it's been taken down. Did you want to come in or not?
No, Chair, I was trying to take it down and it wouldn't go down. It's there now.
Okay, thank you for that. So I know that we're going to move into part 2 and that Gareth and David will be leaving us. Just to make you aware that the plan is that we will have the training at 3:30. It was scheduled for 4, but obviously we're going to finish well before then. So if you are leaving, then you can come back in for just before 3:30, because we will be then having the training at 3:30. So I need to ask that we stop the recording now of the live stream, and that
too later.
Yeah, and Gareth and David will be leaving as we go into part 2.
Oil.
I'll be handing over to Helen for this agenda.